When reading Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, most readers naturally picture the Queen's bizarre croquet game unfolding in their minds. The scene is vivid and whimsical. It was all ridges and furrows. The balls were live hedgehogs, the mallets live flamingos, and the soldiers had to double themselves up and to stand on their hands and feet to make the arches. Many readers can not only visualize this moment, but fill it in with rich details. The rustle of the flamingo's feathers, the gleam in the Queen's eye, even the chaotic swirl of color in the garden. But for a small subset of people, that mental picture doesn't exist at all. As they read, they comprehend the scene intellectually, but inside their mind's eye, there's nothing. No image, no flash of color, just darkness. This phenomenon is called aphantasia, and it's estimated to affect about 4% of the population. First described in the 1800s by a psychologist who asked participants to picture their breakfast table and rate the vividness of the mental image, aphantasia has only recently gained more scientific attention. That early study revealed something surprising. Our ability to create mental imagery exists on a spectrum. On one end are those with aphantasia, who see no mental images at all. On the opposite end are people with hyperphantasia, who can imagine scenes so vividly it nearly rivals real sight. Most people, of course, fall somewhere between these extremes. But how do we know that someone with aphantasia isn't simply describing their mental experience differently? After all, how can we objectively measure what someone is seeing in their own mind? Researchers have tried to answer this question by studying the eyes. Specifically, they've looked at the pupillary light reflex, a reflex that causes our pupils to shrink when exposed to bright light. Interestingly, even just imagining a light source can trigger this reflex. But in people with aphantasia, that response is absent. Their pupils don't constrict when they visualize bright scenes because they aren't truly visualizing them in the traditional sense. Brain imaging has also uncovered intriguing insights. One puzzle is that many people with aphantasia still experience visual imagery in dreams. How is that possible? It appears to come down to the difference between deliberate visualization and spontaneous imagery. When we try to visualize something while awake, say a sunset or a friend's face, it's a top-down process. The brain's cognitive control centers activate, which then stimulate visual and memory areas to produce a mental image. But dream imagery likely comes from a bottom-up process, where deeper brain structures automatically fire up visual regions without needing conscious effort. That's why people with aphantasia might dream in vivid pictures, even though they can't summon those visuals while awake. The roots of aphantasia also seem to be partly genetic. It tends to run in families, suggesting that the richness of our internal visual world might be influenced by inherited brain wiring. While most individuals with aphantasia are born with it, some people develop it later in life, usually following brain injury or certain psychological events. But it's important to note that having aphantasia or hyperphantasia isn't considered a disorder. It's just a fascinating variation in human perception. This difference doesn't only affect how we imagine, but also how we react emotionally. For instance, if you have a strong mind's eye, just reading an intense scene in a novel might make your palms sweat or your heart race. Your body responds to the imagined moment as if it's real. But people with aphantasia typically don't show this kind of physiological response. Without mental imagery to feed their emotions, the connection between thought and physical reaction is less direct. Interestingly, this could also offer a sort of psychological advantage. Some researchers speculate that aphantasia may protect against certain mental health conditions, especially those involving intrusive or traumatic imagery, like PTSD. However, more studies are needed before drawing firm conclusions. Aphantasia also appears to influence memory. People with hyperphantasia often report being able to replay past events in vivid detail, almost like watching a movie. They can recall what someone wore, what the room looked like, even the exact way the sunlight hit the wall. Those with aphantasia, in contrast, might remember facts and feelings, but not the accompanying visual details. Even career paths might be subtly shaped by how our minds visualize. In a large survey, researchers found that people with aphantasia were more likely to gravitate towards STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and math, where precise visual imagination may be less critical. Meanwhile, individuals with hyperphantasia often find themselves drawn to the arts, media, and creative design, where a vivid inner canvas becomes a valuable tool. Ultimately, aphantasia reminds us that perception is deeply personal. We all live in our own mental landscapes, some vivid and colorful, others conceptual and abstract. And while we may never fully access another person's internal world, recognizing that these differences exist can foster a deeper appreciation for the diversity of human experience. So the next time someone says they see what you're saying, just know they might mean it quite literally, or not at all.